Reb Nachman of Wroclaw taught the important lesson that's inscribed on this year's high holiday swag, which I hope you got as you entered this sanctuary. It's a new coin to keep in our pockets, reminding us, Ima tama'amin sheyecholim lekalkel, tamin sheyecholim letakin. If you believe that you're capable of destroying, corrupting, ruining, then you must believe, you are responsible to believe that you are equally capable of transformation, of restoration, of repair, of being an agent of renewal and healing. It's a startling insight. The ability to ruin and the ability to renew arise from the same source. We all know for a fact that we can destroy our lives and the lives of others even. How then can we doubt that our creative powers are as strong as our destructive ones? The aphorism begins with a powerful assumption that we admit we're capable of wrong. Indeed, we admit we've done wrong. But as Midrash Tehillim teaches us, let not man say, I have sinned and there is no home for me. Our tradition doesn't allow us to leave it there. We're celebrating the birthday of the world today, and part of Torah's birth narrative is the story of Adam and Eve's attempt to deny their sin. God pursues them in the Garden of Eden, calling out, Ayeka, where are you? Absurdly, they dodge. They dodge their all-seeing God and are punished with exile from paradise. They are avoidant. But Reb Nachman assumes that we are remorseful, able to answer Ayeka with Hineni. Here I am. I'm right here. I'm not running away. And this speaks to our strength of character. To feel remorse is more than to be sorry. It's a pivot. It signals a new perspective on our deeds of the past, ourselves at the present, and on our plans for the future. Looking back, we see what we were unable or unwilling to see before, namely the harm we've done. We accept that we did harm and take responsibility. No more blame of the other or of circumstance. No more they deserved it or I had no recourse. Rather, my fault. Regardless of what they did to provoke me, regardless of how much they deserve it, my fault. Taking responsibility, we break from the past and regain our moral judgment. I was so moved when, during her visit to Or Shalom, Palestinian peace activist Shadia Kupti said to us, speaking about the terrible war in Israel and Palestine, everyone's a hostage. Our morality is held hostage. Since she said that, I've been thinking how freeing it will be to regain our moral judgment. Because judging our actions from a higher moral plane, we can break free of the painful past, pivot, and transform. The two sides of our coin look back and look forward. Admitting we've destroyed, we look back with willingness to assume responsibility. And we look forward knowing that we need further moral transformation. We look back in dismay, and we look forward with what Christian theologian and activist Harold O.J. Brown called hopeful sorrow. He said, repentance follows upon sorrow about the past, hopeful sorrow. We always carry the sentiments of this coin, this token, the obverse asserting that we do and will pervert and destroy, and the reverse entreating us to believe in our power to enact better and better healing, the nature of that healing evolving over time to remain relevant. Reb Nachman doesn't use the word teshuvah with its literal meaning of return. Rather, he speaks of tikkun, which as a verb means to fix, and as a noun is affix. In the realm of halakha, Jewish law, a takana is a paradigm-shifted fix, a new solution for when circumstances change that render the old fix no longer useful. It's an evolved healing that doesn't go back to the way things were before. By way of example, at Or Shalom, we have instituted takanot in the realm of egalitarianism. Or Shalom began extending equal status and liturgical privileges to women. And our egalitarianism has evolved over time with an eye to who is marginalized, how we are culpable in having held various constituencies to the side, and how we can fix that. In the last 9 years, commitment to egalitarianism has brought Or Shalom to elevation of LGBTQ plus lay leaders and programming that highlights LGBTQ plus rabbis and scholars as role models, to create a cemetery where non-Jewish members can be buried with their partners, to reformation of who is a Jew, to creation of a new Chevra Kadisha so that no one is marginalized in death. Now we reconsider our eldering constituency so that our founders will not be marginalized as young families fill our roster. And we're looking at better inclusion, ensuring virtual and hybrid program options, and planning to install an elevator as part of our renovation project. We've been fixing with an eye on the future. Reb Zalman taught that the sin that is hardest to atone for is habit. The more we are in a habitual state, the more unlikely it is that we will go beyond, flex, change, be in the moment, be available to the challenges of our time. Sometimes going back to the way things were before, as in Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, return us as in days of old, isn't possible and isn't even the best idea. Sometimes, as Kamala Harris's campaign insists, we're not going back. Sometimes, as with the present watershed in Israel, we recognize that going back to the way it was is both not possible and not advisable. Return to the way it was before won't address the truths we now have been sensitized to. Sometimes teshuvah is not return. Rather, it's a turn, a pivot, a turning point at which a new way forward is forged. The new way could be a takana, a paradigm-shifted repair. Sometimes, as with unhealthy personal relationships, the best we can do is learn how to make different choices, how to conduct ourselves differently. Sometimes we're changed by the sin itself. We'll never be the same having committed that act. Sometimes we're changed by the process of repair, coming to see and understand things we were not aware of before. Sometimes both are true, and we can't go back because we are different people now, and we see things differently. So we try again, differently this time, having learned from our mistakes, small and large, sometimes terrible mistakes. On this day of judgment, we can't look past our anguish over goings on in the state of Israel. Our collective challenge of this moment seems insurmountable. How do we enact takana, timely repair, a repair that moves us forward towards self-determination for all the peoples of that land, while maintaining Jewish security? To achieve that, we'll have to shake free of a story that's not working for us anymore and open with real curiosity to other possibilities, possibilities that will require unprecedented creativity. On Kol Nidre, we begin our tefillah with a communal disavowal of certainty. The big spiritual question we face is, can we free our hearts of what we think we know? The convictions that cement the old story. Can we soften the defense that has hardened into armor? Can we open the door of the cage of our historic victimhood, releasing ourselves to evolve into our next blossoming, freer to become the Jewish people of our highest aspiration? This will require imitatio Dei. Why do I invoke imitation of God? Not just because we humans have inherited the godly power of ingenuity, but because, as Rabbi Arik said a little earlier, even God faltered in his attempt to create. Even God makes mistakes. In the mystical telling of creation, the world God succeeds in fashioning. The world we celebrate today on the birthday of the world is God's second try. Even this world requires tikkun, our tikkun olam. The first time God tried to create a world, God overestimated the capacity of reality to absorb the force of the divine will. God ruined the first creation with God's heavy hand. Subsequently, God learned to control a more attenuated flow of energy. To try again, God must have admitted their capacity to destroy and must equally have believed in their capacity to do better. Perhaps an aspect of imitatio Dei is rising to godliness on our willingness to submit to the humility of a second try, even the ongoing humility of perpetual second tries. God's first act of self-control is described by the medieval Jewish Kabbalist Rabbi Isaac Luria. He called it tzimtzum, contraction. In Kabbalah's conception of creation, God hollowed out a space within God's self to make room for something other than God to exist. Ross might say, it's like me making room for him in our closet. And he'd be right. If I want to share my home, I need to make room. One thing we learn from Tzimtzum is that the other needs space within which to exist, and even better, to thrive. If the other is not thriving, they'll make us miserable. And there will be no shalom bayit, no peace at home. With God's increased self-control, God learned to pour creative energy into vessels that were nurtured rather than overwhelmed with what God had to give. Only then did physical worlds of time and space and stars and galaxies and mountains and storm clouds and plants and animals of all species and kinds begin to evolve. Only with a tempered divine self-control did humankind evolve. Only after God's takanah, God's improved process, could the first human receive God's outbreath and be animated, live with the facility to in turn imitate God's creative practice. As an artist, I want to look carefully at that practice, at how God goes about managing their massive 7-day project. What I see is that God, like many artists and many good project managers for that matter, sets up a system that has the capacity to develop independently and trusts in the details that will be generated, details beyond God's direct control. God watches and deems the unfolding of creation to be good or very good. And he regulates a rhythm of work and rest beginning again each morning. I find myself encouraged, inspired by God's course of action, which second time round is not only better controlled and contained, but also more permissive and allowing. In this, I want to credit Rabbi Shai Held, who brought my attention to a reading of the first verses of Genesis, I cannot see another way, after his gloss on the text. Genesis 1 says something as crucial as it is easy to miss. On the third day, when God wants create vegetation to emerge, God doesn't fashion it. Rather, God assigns the task to the earth herself. Let the earth sprout vegetation, seed-bearing plants, fruit trees of every kind, and earth brings forth plants and trees. Then on the fifth day, God invites the waters to bring forth swarms of creatures and birds that fly across the expanse of the heavens. And on the sixth day, the earth is invited to bring forth every kind of creature, cattle, creeping things, and wild beasts. Hebrew Bible scholar Terence Fretheim describes what's happening as mediate rather than immediate creation. Mediate in that God is acting through the earth and sky, relying on their determination of flora and fauna. On the second try, God masters the process not unilaterally, but in collaboration. God failed at creating a world. God saw that they were destructive and believed in their capacity for tikkun, not going back and trying the same thing again, but moving forward with a fix that was something new, achieved by way of a new process. God reformed God's self as a creator, learning better control of their creative force, adjusting to the capacity of the vessels receiving divine energy, and working with them to create first forms, then underlying frameworks that God chose to set into motion and entrusted with autonomy to shape the details of our world and her future. Some of you still have your old coins in your pocket from 8 years ago. So I know you will keep this new talisman. When you reach into your pockets and pull this one out, remember that Reb Nachman offers us hope. Just because we can't see our way back doesn't mean we can't see our way forward. This coin reminds us that we must believe in our ability to pivot from remorse to new action, to a fix that shakes us free of habitual thinking, that requires curiosity and imagination, and most difficult but most exciting, that requires us to make room for other voices in the Takana, make room for trust and partnership as we find a new way. May we be flexible. May we let go of ideas that don't work anymore. May we not go back. May we experience hopeful sorrow. And may that mix of regret and faith fuel our imaginations so that the world of our dreams might be conceived on this day, Rosh Hashanah, the day the world is created anew. L'chein yhi ratzon.